Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Up in the morning before day, I don't like it, no way. Eat my breakfast too soon, hungry as a hound dog. By noon, went to the mess sergeant on my knees. Mess sergeant, feed me please. Mess sergeant replied with a big old grin. If you want to be airborne, you gotta be thin. Hey, hey, all the way. We run every day. Hey, hey, all the way. We run every day, and we're back.
And we are back on America's Web Radio, and that's our favorite Jody singer. General Richard Dix retired, and we certainly appreciate him and his Jodies. And we did so many folks don't even know what a Jody is.
Mm-hmm, that's true.
We did one the other day for somebody, and they really got a kick out of it. And let's see, when Michael or Mike Mazzell was in, we did one.
Okay.
And people got to take them right, but they got to understand that back in the day, and I assume every base and post and fort right now, or somebody's out there singing a Jody.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And what it means to the troops, and it's just not because, it's because there's a reason for it.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's a motivational tool. It helps you get through whatever you're going through.
And there's some that are a little coarser than others, but that's all right. It's
and we've had to reshape them over the years.
I bet that's true.
Yep, absolutely.
So you have a couple of announcements that you want to make, and want to ask everybody to listen up. And this is unfortunately you're going to be making more and more of these, I'm afraid.
Yep, absolutely. Each day we're losing more and more veterans from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and OIF and OEF. And this past 2-3 weeks, we've said goodbye to Sergeant Charles Stewart out of Rock Island, Illinois, World War II veteran that served in every major campaign from North Africa to Germany and crossing over into Germany with the Red Ball Express and other combat elements. He participated in D-Day, and it tells you that the greatest generation is still around. They're fewer and fewer as we approach each day. But when we have time to spend time with a veteran and listen to the stories and pick their brains about why they served, it means a lot. And it's another indicator that this show is greatly needed. We also lost Lance Corporal William B. Oglesby from the United States Marine Corps. He participated in Vietnam in 64-65. And great father, great brother, great uncle, and just an all-around great leader that taught me a lot about how to lead and how to care for others. And we lost him to Vietnam-related injuries and a rare heart condition. And then the final person that I want to mention is Lieutenant Colonel retired Marvin Kellum, great friend of mine. Served right on the cusp of Desert Storm, but more importantly, served in Iraq and Kuwait, and he leaves behind a family. He died unexpectedly. He served as a Department of the Army civilian at the Pentagon, and passed away just last week. And I tell you, it's been a tough week for the Kellum family. His mother passed away on this past Saturday, and we suspect from a broken heart, but that family now has to bury 2 of their loved ones. So our prayers and God's peace, please go out to that family and the families that I mentioned earlier. I want to say hello to the Mermaids from LA Fitness and let everybody know that, hey, I will be back soon. The transition is almost complete, and I'd like to thank David Moxley for all of his help in getting the family moved, and Around Town Movers have done a great job. It's still not done. We still have one more section to go, and that'll happen later in the week, but we're looking forward to the new location and giving back to the state and to those veterans that are in need and other family members and students that we speak to on a weekly basis. We're really looking forward to that. And the last thing that I like to mention, David, is that the times that we're living in do not call for panic. They call for America's resolve and strength. Listen to what the medical professionals are telling you. Social separation is a good thing when you got a airborne disease that is not brand new. You know, it's been around for a while. We may be dealing with a new strain that needs to be dealt with, but the disease overall is not brand new. We just need to practice good hygiene. We need to make sure that we take care of our seniors and give them every opportunity to get through this storm. We talked about earlier troops being called up. You know, I really don't think we're at that point yet. However, troops to transport those that need transport to either medical appointments or back to their homes after they've gone through quarantine may be okay. But I don't think mass troop call-ups with troops in MOP 4 or the chemical protective gear is warranted right now. How do you feel about that, David?
No, I agree, and I think that I speak for myself, not for anyone else, but I think everything is being done that can be done, and we saw what it did in China. I still have my personal beliefs because of the coincidence of the oil industry and this virus and a few other things that are sort of under the table. But I don't think this was just a happenstance. I think either we're being taken advantage of or it was planned, and I don't know. There is one thing that I would really like to say, if you don't mind, Richard, about and wrap up what you said, is that we don't choose our time to depart.
Amen.
It's, I don't know when my time is, your time is, or anybody else's, but the point of the story is we're all going to at some point, and my family is like every other family. We've made the mistake that I didn't talk to my dad before he died to get some of his World War II stories, and certainly my grandfather and my uncle. My uncle served in the Spanish-American War that I didn't even know about until, this was many years. And he was one of the Rough Riders. As a matter of fact, and,
outstanding.
And I have no idea some of the stories he could have told, and they're gone.
Right.
And my point being is, if you have a veteran in your family, or it doesn't have to be a veteran, it was like my grandfather had so many interesting sayings, idioms that. I can remember some of them, but I can't remember all of them.
Right.
And, every family that I know of, well, I'm going to get down Uncle Joe's stuff, and I'm going to record it, or I'm going to write it down. And he dies, and they never, I'm going to get around to it. And they never get around to it. So I guess what I'm saying is, please go out and talk to your family members, find out their history, find out. I guarantee you there's not a person out there breathing that doesn't have something interesting to say.
Absolutely.
And I'm challenging everybody out there to talk to that uncle, talk to that aunt. How did they make it through the the Great Depression, or what do they see in what's happening today? Does this, this reminds me of.
Right.
And what does it remind you of, you know? And how important it is, you know, growing up, and I have no idea where it is today, but growing up, I remember my father and my family, his side of the family anyway, but both sides of the family had one, as a matter of fact, come to think of it, but they didn't have recorders, they didn't have Apple computers, they didn't have Apple iPhones, they didn't have any of this stuff, but they had the huge family Bible.
Yep.
And everything historical
Was in that Bible.
Baby Sue was born today, you know, and so and on and on. We lost Uncle Bill, you know, and it was all in that family Bible. And you know, if people back then could take the time to write it out,
right?
Why can't we take the time to record it? And what those memories will mean to you 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, and to your kids, please take the time to record or
Absolutely.
Write this stuff down.
And there are companies out there that do a video history of recording of the family. And we got it done both here in Atlanta and also down in Jacksonville, Florida, for my wife's family. So there were some great stories that were told. And you're absolutely right. The generations behind us, you know, that's our legacy. And if we don't tell that story, what happens to the legacy? Where does it go? And every human being on the face of this earth has some kind of input and some type of story to tell. Especially in today's times, you really have to capture what you have before it's gone. And you're absolutely right, David. You just don't know when. You don't know the time nor the place. And, you know, I tell folks, when you get that phone call, that's one call that you have to answer. You can't put it on hold. You can't say, you know, leave a voicemail. And, you know, I want the story to be there for the future generations to say, hey, you know, I kind of knew Paul, and I thought I understood all the things that he had done, but wow, you know, it's amazing. It really is.
It is, and it's a. I hate to use. It's a crime, but it's not a punishable crime. But it's a crime to lose those things and lose the experience that. You know, my dad, my father was a officer, commander in the Navy, and you know, his time on a ship, he had. And he had some gross stories about leaving San Francisco and going to Hawaii, and a bunch of people on the ship weren't seaworthy, and they didn't have the patch behind the ear. And
oh boy!
You know, he told me through, you know, stuff that you really don't want to hear at noon. But anyhow, you know, they're just everybody has an experience.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And, they're none too big and none too small. And what I would like is the folks that served under General Dix to tell us some of those stories and what it was like. And you can email me at David@AmericasWebRadio, and we'd love to hear from you and love to hear the stories. And you know, it just if like the saying is, if you don't keep up with history, then you're doomed to repeat it.
Absolutely.
And there's stories, just like in Bob Babcock's book, the stories from Vietnam. I'm Ready to Talk. You know, if you don't get them, then they're gone forever, and that's not good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, with that being said, you know, you mentioned, or we talked very briefly about the potential of either the reserves being called up, the National Guard, or the possibility of the military being called up, which I'm like you, I don't think the military would be the answer. And I don't know, and nobody's ever said how many medical units there are. I know there's some actual National Guard medical units, that's their thing, but
Right.
I have no idea how big or how small that is. And I don't know that. My thinking is I'm not a epidemiologist or just a poor old boy that has a mic in front of him, but it seems to me like if we just stopped and didn't give the virus a chance to have any kind of gestation period or jump from one person to the next for a couple of 2 or 3 days, then it would stop itself.
Yeah, you would think it would tend to burn out, or when the weather changes, there are some in the profession that anticipate that the heat will, keep the virus at bay. You just never know. But there are 2 examples that I can recall. One from Desert Storm, where we had probably 2/3 of the 24th Infantry Division got food poisoning from some food that was provided to us at the Port of Damman, and to see that many people sick with diarrhea and everything else imaginable at that time. We quarantined probably 2 brigades worth of personnel.
Wow.
Got everybody cleaned up, burned a lot of uniforms, swapped out cots, everything you could think of, took hot showers, got everybody cleaned up, and we were able to quarantine the personnel, separate them, and then immediately identify the source of what we had eaten and what made everybody sick, and then turned around, disposed of all of that material, and then got everybody back to a steady diet of stuff that we controlled as an army, that we brought back from the States, and we got the brigades back up on their feet within 2 to 3 weeks, got everybody healthy again, and then prepared to move out to our intermediate staging bases out in the hinterlands. But if any of our listeners are listening and they were part of the division and they remember those days, please come up on the net and let us know, if it has similarities to what we're seeing today with COVID-19. And it sparked some debate on how we should be handling what we should be handling. And personal hygiene was the center focus back then and should really be the center focus right now. That's your best line of defense, is excellent personal hygiene. If you know you're sick, stay away from everybody else. Self-quarantine, drink plenty of fluids, pump a lot of vitamin C into your bodies, and if it escalates, then you go and you seek medical attention ASAP, get tested, and then complete your treatment, and then come on back out. I think the professional sports teams, as we talked earlier, have done a great job of shutting down the seasons. There's no game that they play that's worth somebody's life, and having those large crowds in confined spaces with the potential for that disease or that bug to jump from person to person and then continue to spread. So
it could be disastrous.
Absolutely.
The one thing I don't keep up with basketball, but they were talking to some of the coaches, and I salute the players that said, well, the ones that work behind the scene, we're going to pay their salaries.
Yep, absolutely.
And to step forward like that, we hear the bad news about them, but I'm glad we heard the good news about them too. And I
Absolutely.
think it's fantastic that they've come forward, and they appreciate the people that are up in the stadiums passing out the Cokes and everything else while they're making their $1 million or whatever. But that's that really got me, and I applaud them for doing it. And like I said, I don't keep up, and I don't recognize the names, but they are heroes as well. And the fact that they recognize, for lack of better words, the little people.
Absolutely. And those are the people that can't afford not to have a paycheck at this particular point in time. Mr. Blank said, hey, we're going to pull a plan together, and we're going to make sure we get those people paid, and we're going to keep on sustain them through this time frame. And, the administration, some of the things that they're doing to try to offset and make sure that small businesses can stay alive, folks can actually stay home with their kids and make sure their kids are taken care of. The school systems and trying to do things online, all the way from the colleges and universities all the way down to the elementary schools. I think it's a great idea, because you don't expose our next generations to the disease, and you keep them safe from it, and you get them through their schoolwork. It's going to call for discipline. They're going to actually have to put the PS4 down and actually do their homework online, and as if they were really in school. I've got 2 grandkids at home that, we were up prepping them this morning. Hey, we're going to get your homework. When we get back, get ready, because you've got schoolwork to do. So no PS4 during the week, just as if you were in school. It's not a day off. This is, your reality until we weather this storm. And I think, being able to pay parents and give them some leave pay behind this thing will help some families sustain. And if not, you got to be able to get them forgiveness at the end of the month, because if you can't go to work and you can't earn a salary, but the risk is great if you do, then you put people in a precarious situation that they feel they have to go out and do something, and then they expose themselves, then they get sick, and who's going to take care of the kids at home when mom and dad now have this? And so just we gotta, as a society, and our politicians have got to think through what need to be done to make sure that we're protecting everybody.
I want to take this opportunity to say that if the folks that are listening to this, one, it's going to be archived, and you'll be able to listen to it at your convenience whenever. And if you want to become a part of it, just give me a call, and we'll tell you how you can be a part of this show. It's remembering Desert Shield and Desert Storm, and we have the support of the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame, and we recognize them, and Johns Creek Vietnam Veterans Association that is putting the wall up, and they'll have their opening ceremony on March the 28th.
It's been postponed.
Oh, has it?
They're going to move it out until probably sometime around the tail end of April or early May.
Mike didn't call.
Yeah, I just heard it on the radio coming over, and I saw an email.
I want to bring up something else that, again, I haven't heard a person say this, so we'll be the first to talk about it. But the reality of what's happening today, each and every one of us is writing history. And I was working at KLBK 1340 on your radio dial in Lubbock, Texas, when President Kennedy was assassinated. And normally speaking, at a radio station, someplace, probably in the GM's office, but someplace, he'd go over and they'd pull down a book. Here's what we do when a president. Well, there ain't no book up there.
Absolutely.
And we played it by ear. As far as I know, other than biblically, there's no book written about what we're going through right now.
Right.
And so, folks, what you're doing is you're living history, and you'll be writing down history. And
Absolutely.
just like we were talking a minute ago, passing it on to your kids, your grandkids, and whoever else someday. I made it through the 2020 pandemic that was worldwide.
Yep.
And and Richard, I'm very optimistic that we will have a happy ending. But at the same token, when we're writing this history, we have to show the good side of it. It can't
Absolutely.
be all doom and gloom. It's got to be, well, we came together as a country, we did this, we did that, and the will word should be in almost everything. Our neighbors got together, we did this, or whatever. So, folks, you're living in history, and be careful how you write it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And capture those lessons learned for future generations so we can map out how to respond to the next pandemic, 20, 30 years from now. Because it happens. And it's happened before. And, our infrastructure was prepared. It was borderline being overwhelmed, but they're taking the lessons learned from the avian flu and the bird flu and other pandemics that were recorded in history and applying some of those lessons learned.
I've been ashamed of some of our politicians that have tried to politicize this, but the fact of the matter is, I was talking to a White House person that told me that, and the news has never reported this, not that I know of anyway, but one of the first acts that Trump did when he took office was that he called together, and that's why it's gone pretty fast and fairly smoothly, really. He put together a pandemic team. This was within the first week of him taking the presidency. And that's why he was one phone call away from having his team in place.
Yeah, he kind of pulled the team together, but he also streamlined and reduced some critical personnel that they have to recall. And, every time you come in, there's always, when we have a transition, you always look at it from a different lens, and you make decisions based off of what you think the country needs and where it needs to go. And then, being able to acquiesce and do a 180 when things that you've enacted go wrong, and then call it as you said it, and then put it back in its proper place is a mark of a good administration. Now, we haven't seen a lot of that. Times such as these are not a time for finger pointing and saying, hey, you did this or you did that. No. You can't do that when Americans are getting sick and people are dying. And, look at Italy. There are no finger pointing over there. There's one Italy, and it's trying to survive. And I mean, you're talking mass numbers on a daily basis, and they haven't even hit the peak of what the medical professionals and the scientists are saying they're really going to endure. The people don't want to hear the government fractured, and they don't want to hear or see a lot of finger pointing. They want answers, they want responses, and they want them to get on top of this as quickly as possible. And there are a lot of things that we can take, both positive and negative, and make sure that we use it to the best of our ability so we don't have mass numbers, large numbers. And, at some point in time, we've got to get away from the politicization of everything that happens in the United States. I constantly preach one United States. And we are at our best when we are one. And this is a great time to come to that kind of realization.
No question. And, this, just what you said is why we may get down, but we wind up on top.
Amen.
And it's our attitude, it's our resilience, it's
cool.
Everything. And I think that, just like you said, the important thing to remember in this or anything is we are Americans.
Amen.
We're not hyphenated Americans. We're Americans.
Nope.
So, it's going to be interesting. We need to, I guess we ought to take a break. That would be a change, and see what happens when we take a break, and we'll be back right after this.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling the cravings and the personal and professional damage done by the effects of drugs or alcohol. Get a pen and paper and be ready to write down the following. These are the issues that the trained staff at the Atlanta Healing Center address and treat every day. Their doctors and counselors with over 40 years of practice in the field of addiction can treat the suffering individual in a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696-9862 and speak to a knowledgeable staff member about how you or your loved one can be helped to enjoy a better and healthier life. More information is also available on the website at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
Want to give your family or loved one the perfect gift? Then go online and check out the TornadoBodyDryer.com. I love mine and the warm heat air massage it gives me after my shower. The Tornado Body Dryer is super. You'll love it, and you'll love having one in your shower.
If your health insurance premium is more than your mortgage, Ellen Deal with Ideal Solutions is here to help. Whether you're a small business owner, individual, family, or baby boomer, email MAGA45CAG@gmail.com and I'll respond with 3 easy questions to help you determine if you can get away from Obamacare. As a 20-year veteran of the insurance industry, I'm here to help with all your insurance needs. Email Ellen Deal at MAGA45CAG@gmail.com.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling the cravings and the personal and professional damage done by the effects of drugs or alcohol. Get a pen and paper and be ready to write down the following. These are the issues that the trained staff at the Atlanta Healing Center address and treat every day. Their doctors and counselors with over 40 years of practice in the field of addiction can treat the suffering individual in a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696-9862 and speak to a knowledgeable staff member about how you or your loved one can be helped to enjoy a better and healthier life. More information is also available on the website at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Richard, there are people out there that are jealous because they don't get to hear what we all talk about during the break. And, folks, we cover most of it on the air, but there are a few things that we might say off the air. But, I hope people appreciate, General Dix comes in here giving of his own time and experience, and he tunes up his voice. Gotta throw that in. But no, he's a wonderful, wonderful man and a wonderful leader. And what he says about what we're going through right now, I hope you've taken notes or at least mental notes. And this is. There's just no way to put a silver lining on it yet, but I hope we do put a silver lining on it, and we look back in 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever and say, okay, well, the U.S. showed what the backbone is made of.
Absolutely.
And we did it. We all did it. And we all sacrificed a little bit, but we also gave. And, the other thing that 1 out of 4 homeless, and this is across the country, are veterans. And I work with a lady called Frankie Holbrook that she's a street missionary, and I don't see how she does what she does, but she does. And I pray every night for her and the homeless, and if whatever opportunity you have, if you can do anything, because there is as big a target as the elderly, like I am, or anybody else is, and they some of them don't even know that they can get medical care, and so in your prayers, as you're praying for the nation, I hope you'll also include the homeless and the veterans that are homeless as well.
And I'll tell you, David, to dovetail off of what you just said, there are approximately 12,500 across the state of Georgia, according to those that work at the Capitol. And I'm proud to have teamed with Dr. Denise Cosby of making a difference for the veterans. And we're working behind the scenes to bring a capability that is holistic, that gets at both the problem and the process to bring both the veterans and the non-veterans back to a sustainable status where they are contributing and they are a part of our global village. And I'm looking forward to meeting Frankie. This is probably the third or fourth time I've heard you mention her name, and I would love to sit down and just pick her brain on what she's seeing out there and the needs. The homeless population is extremely vulnerable right now because they don't have access to running water. They can't exercise personal hygiene, as constantly as the medical professionals are telling us we need to do it. After you touch a doorknob or after you sneeze or if you cough, you need to immediately wash your hands. You need to have sanitizer available. They don't have access to that. And that's what they need. Someone once told me, I don't need your self-pity. I need something tangible that can help me get to where I need to go and to be able to take care and sustain my family, and a lot of the people that we've been talking about from the professional ranks that support the arenas where the sporting events go on, they're just one paycheck away from being homeless. And now that this has happened and they've shut down everything, that's their livelihood. And it goes on a seasonal cyclic opportunity for them where now they don't have that. So you probably just, in another 30 or 40 days, we'll probably add to the rolls of the homeless, not only here in this state, but across the United States. So, when we talk about us coming together as one America, it's even more critical that we come together right now to help those, but more importantly, to prevent the next round of homelessness that could be an incubator for the COVID-19 virus and, keeps things escalating. So when you see someone, if you got some extra hand sanitizer, share it with them, or get them, whatever you can give to try to help them. But, there are agencies out there, nonprofits, that are doing everything humanly possible because they know they were vulnerable before this even began. Now you drop this into the middle of them, and now you got the perfect storm for our homeless that can decimate that population. And they are our brothers and sisters that we need to care about. And I applaud you for bringing that up and being willing to talk about that on our show today. It's absolutely critical.
Well, I hate to say it, but I had to be slapped upside the head, and just like you said, we're all brothers and we're all sisters, and I have had a time when I said, why don't they go get a job, or why don't they do this, or why, they're just, one step above an animal or something, and there too, there's some amazing stories out there that are with the homeless. There's some amazing talent in the homeless sect, and it just, and again, I don't get along with people that aren't homeless, much less people that are, because I haven't walked in their shoes. Yeah. And when you haven't, you don't know what's going on mentally. But I'm like you. I applaud Frankie Holbrook. Her nonprofit is called Shine His Light, and it's Frankie Holbrook, KIE, and then Holbrook. And you can look her up online, and anything from $5 to 5,000, whatever. But she's out there day in and day out, right. And quite frankly, I haven't got the intestinal fortitude or the guts to go out and go some of the places that she does. And just her stories can't curl your hair because you ain't got any, but curl my hair. But just. And thank God for people like her, and she's obviously not the only one. There are a lot of others, and I'll put my last 2 cents worth in. I wish our government, Congress, could get their head out of the sand and give doctors a buy on malpractice and doctors a break on taxes, and then the homeless will have all the medical attention they want. It's that simple.
Absolutely.
And we've been working on it, and we can't get Congress or anybody else to see the light of how easy the solution can be.
Absolutely. And it should go for the first responders, the teachers, the administrators, all of those professions that directly impact and touch, everybody in this country. They need to develop, a way that if we can't give them more pay, or we can't align the budget to where, you can make an impact where it's truly needed. And I understand, just like you understand, the defense of this country and what you have to be prepared to do and how you have to keep up with our adversaries around the world. But I would tell you, there are a lot of people both in and out of uniform that do a lot to effectively do more with the dollars that we get, and it doesn't call for throwing an exorbitant amount of dollars at a problem, but it'll allow us to reshift some of those funds where it's needed, and and if you can't shift those funds, then give the tax breaks, at the tip of the spear where it's really needed, because, I go into schools around the country, and I'm just amazed on a daily basis, and I tell teachers and administrators, wow, and they're like, oh, sir, you've been to combat, and I'm like, no. You guys and what y'all deal with on a daily basis and what we as a people pay you guys, you are my true heroes. And doctors are the same thing. Nurses, the medical profession on a whole is overwhelmed, underpaid, and there are a lot of creative things that you mentioned that we could do that could help these folks out,
Sure.
And, it's time to put the politics aside and come up with some kind of solution that, gives us what we need, and that is the foundation. If you have a solid foundation, everything else builds off of that, and you see true success across the board when the foundation is solid and it's balanced across the board. And, that's what we need to get back to.
Richard, let me ask you something.
Here it comes.
No, I don't want you to sing another Jody. Now, I had thought, as we see the stores and people panicking and, oh, my God, we're not going to have food, we're not going to be able to eat and all this. What they don't know, and I may not know either, I may be blowing smoke, but in the 70s, we still had stockpile after stockpile after stockpile of what we call sea rations. Mm-hmm. And if I were a betting man, I'd bet there's still some sea rations out there. And now MREs.
Yep.
And the government, they can fill up a deuce and a half with MREs and feed a lot of folks.
Oh yeah,
and,
absolutely.
I'm not suggesting that's going to happen or anything like that. But at the same token, going hungry is down at the bottom of my list as far as running out of supplies.
Absolutely.
Our farmers do a fantastic job. I don't particularly care for the middlemen, but the end producers, they do a fantastic job. And, the shelves may be a little empty right now, but they'll be filled back up in short order, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's no need to panic, and there's no need to fight over toilet paper. I'm like, really? There is absolutely no need.
Buy a box of Kleenex. It works the same.
Absolutely. And what you said about the MREs and Class 1 rations, period, is absolutely true. And there are stockpiles, all strategically placed around the United States, that if push came to shove, we could take care of the American people and the military personnel that are serving this great country, both here domestically and worldwide. So you're absolutely right. There's no need to panic. There's no need to make a run on 1,000 loaves of bread. When you do that, you're going to waste food because you can't eat all of it. And, there are your fellow countrymen out there that need it, And we were in a Kroger on Friday, and, there was so much teamwork going on in the store with, fellow citizens that were buying food. Nobody was fighting over anything. Nobody was pushing anybody around. We were helping each other. We were talking through the scenario. A lot of people were asking me, well, why do you have that in your cart? I'm like, well, ma'am, what I'm doing is I'm replicating what an MRE would provide for my family and stuff. I dried goods that, we could put on the shelf for 60, 90 days and still be able to eat at a certain time and stuff. That's all we need. We don't need that much, and I want to save some for my neighbor who may need some. We brought some extra and gave to a next door neighbor who was a little older and a senior. And, those are the kind of things that we grew up, and that village that we had back in the day, I remember taking dinners to my neighbors and helping them out, and not questioning why my mother and grandmothers were preparing food and then taking it to Miss Betty down the street, and helping feed. And, my wife's parents told me stories about the neighborhood kids coming over to their house every morning before school, sitting down on newspaper, and, they were feeding along with her brothers and sisters. And those people now are grown, and they were telling me the story of how they would not have made it had it not been for Nancy and Louis Fields feeding the entire neighborhood. Those are the things that we got to get back to and not retreat into our own little enclave. But remember, the village is larger, dynamic, and we got to take care of everybody in the side of that village. The politicians need to remember that especially, because,
Amen.
That will now drive sound decisions that will make sure the whole village is taken care of, not just a certain segment.
and what you were saying earlier too, and what we were talking about with the homeless, is the give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Give a man the weight of fish and he'll eat for a lifetime.
Amen.
And this is, and I guess the other thing, and I fault myself, and they're human too, and they're not animals. They're humans, and we've got to. They're our brothers. They're our sisters, and doesn't mean you have to take them home with you. Just take care of them.
Absolutely.
Do what you can. Whether it's a small amount of money or this or that, and I don't have the answer. People like Frankie Holbrook that I've mentioned several times, she has the answer, and she knows, the night that we got down in the upper 20s 2 or 3 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, whenever it was, she was out handing out blizzard blankets. I didn't ever even think of that, and it was, but that's the kind of sweetheart lady she is, and she had prepared for the weather and out giving out blizzard blankets to so people wouldn't freeze and or get sicker than some of them are from the exposure anyway.
Absolutely.
And so deal with somebody that knows what they're talking about, and unfortunately there are people that'll say they know what they're talking about when they don't. And I'm not an expert on anything, but
whatever the solution we come up with has got to take care of the whole of a person,
yes,
not just one aspect of what they're dealing with, And just like you said earlier, you've got to understand, and you got to be able to walk in someone else's shoes. I've spoken to people that worked at a Fortune 500 company, and they were living paycheck to paycheck. And, they were in an area that the cost of living was, out of this world. And, you're talking about unceremoniously getting laid off of fire from a job, having no safety net, 2 kids at home, a house, a dog, and 2 cars. And then all of a sudden, 30 days later, you're living out of that car. Home has been closed, and and you're hanging on to the 2 kids, the wife and the dog, and you're just trying to make it, and once you go into that realm, it's very hard to come out unless you have help. You've got programs that are designed to give you an end-to-end type solution that helps these folks out, and those are the things that we really need to focus on. And there are those here locally in our government that are doing just that. We're just scrambling, trying to get everything structured to be able to provide a total end-to-end type solution and stuff. And not only for the veterans, but for everybody that's suffering through what we consider hard times.
Well, unfortunately, I think we're going to see the domino effect cause more hard times in the near future, and it's like what I said a minute ago. If you want to get involved with this show or any of our shows, you can join as a patron. You can become a patron of the station, get our newsletter, or you'll have direct access to our host, like General Dix, and we'd like to hear from you, and quite frankly, we want to know that we got support out there for what we're doing. And we have tomorrow, Wednesday is Sandy Bostic, that was an agent for Homeland Security. And he's got, talking about stories, he's got some stories. And beyond that, tomorrow he's going to talk about what we're talking about, sort of, is survival and getting through what we're about to go through.
Amen.
And there's going to be, obviously, as things tighten up, there'll unfortunately be more crime, and we're just going to have to stick together. Please don't go any place at night, particularly by yourself. it just and the whole bottom line is ask God for wisdom in what you do, and think about what you're about to do and what you're doing, and we'll make it.
Amen.
We'll make it. So,
Amen.
General Dix, as always, I look forward to this hour. It's such a pleasure to just be in your company. And
same here, David. Same here.
You know, we folks, if you ever want to come in and see the show, once we get past this, and we have the sterilization unit out front, and
and the biggest hand sanitizer container I've seen in a very long time.
And we squirt you down with it. But no, we'd love to hear from you, and if you would like to come in, just email me, david@americaswebradio.com, and if you can go online to become a patron, we'd appreciate that as well. And stay tuned for, we just have super shows tomorrow with Sandy Bostic, and we call it Agent in Charge, and Sandy is, and he's also got some very interesting cattle that he raises, and we'll be talking about that in the near future and what he's going to be doing with them. But for everybody else, thank you for listening today, and we want to close by again acknowledging your friends and the folks that have left us. And I hope and pray that they've gone to a better place.
Absolutely.
And, that they'll, you and I both know some pretty rusty, crusty veterans, and you have to say, I wonder if. But my feeling is, and we talk about the ultimate sacrifice. Well, my feeling is, for what most of them have given and done, there's a very special place for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We don't know. I certainly don't know. But one of these days, if I make it to heaven, I'll let you know. And if there's a O.D. Green unit over there, I'll pass it on to you.
I'll look forward to joining it one day.
It's we just don't know. But and it's a shame that we're losing so many of the World War II vets and now Vietnam veterans, and certainly Korean veterans as well. So please go out and get their story before you can't get their story from them. And Lord willing, and the creeks don't rise, and unfortunately in Atlanta the creeks may be rising, but as long as they don't rise too much, we'll be back next week.
Amen. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, sir.
The disease of addiction is a life-altering challenge, not just for the person